In this video, we are talking about how to overcome perfectionism by making art, and I'll also share my story of how I stumbled upon this concept. And since we are talking about making art, I thought it would be a fun idea to shoot this video while painting. If you're here for the first time, welcome to my channel. My name is Kiran and I make videos on mindfulness, emotional resilience and spirituality. Now before we get started, I will add a disclaimer. One, I am not a professional artist. I only picked up painting last year. So I am a complete beginner. And please forgive me if my painting style or my painting strokes seem unprofessional, because they are. Now, if you are someone who struggles with perfectionism, then making art, at least in my experience, is one of the best ways to overcome your perfectionist tendencies. And if you're thinking to yourself, how can I make art? I can't even draw a stick figure. Well, I am so with you, because I was just like that not too long ago. But the idea here is not to make art, but rather imperfect art. And you will know more as we go along in this video. Now, a year ago, if someone had told me that, next year I'll be making this video as in an art video on YouTube, I would have quite honestly laughed at that person, because until a year ago, I had no interest in art. I was one of those people that used to think that art is a waste of time. So then what changed for me? So last April, I started getting a very strong intuition on learning watercolors. At first, I brushed off my intuition because I was busy with many projects at that time and I didn't want to learn one thing more. But my intuition persisted, and finally one day, I went to the local art supply store and I got the cheapest paints that I could find. I was so sure that, I won't spend more than 2 to 3 days on learning watercolors, and that would be the end of the story. And then my intuition would stop bothering me. What I didn't know at that time was that those watercolors were about to change my life. So when I got home, I took out the drawing paper, I took these paints and I just started making random strokes. Now, this might sound weird, but as I was playing around with watercolors, checking out different colors, and just putting them on paper, my eyes teared up. Now, if you have watched any of my previous videos, other videos, you know that I often talk about learning to connect with the wisdom of our physical body. And for me, as strange as it might sound, but my body communicates to me through tears. As in, when I have tears in my eyes and there is no logical reasoning or explanation to it, I know that that's my body's way of communicating with me and telling me that I need to pay attention. So after this entire incident with watercolors, I got really intrigued, and a part of my mind was like, okay, I really need to explore this more. Now, I didn't know how to draw, so I started with drawing out simple shapes like rectangle, square, circle, and I would just color them. Like imagine, making circles and just painting them. And this is so simple, right? And yet this simple thing brought me so much joy. You know how there are times when you do something and your heart starts to sink? That's pretty much how I felt with watercolors. So here's a glimpse of some of the early paintings I made. So one day, I don't know what dawned on me, but I decided that I was going to post my super imperfect paintings on Instagram. And I was so sure that no one would like them because they were imperfect, right? And I was shocked when I started getting a few likes on them. Like, my brain flipped when that happened. Because if you know me, then I am someone who struggled with perfectionism all my life. Like, I can't even tell you the number of opportunities I missed because of my mindset, because I was so stuck on perfection. Like, no matter how hard I worked, it was never enough. And here I was finding that my imperfect art was enough. And for someone like me, this was a humbling experience. And so I was convinced that, I was onto something here and I needed to keep making more of my imperfect art. As I continued with my art journey, I have had so many revelations about how a perfectionist mind works. And for majority of us, perfection is a form of coping mechanism. And this is something I also mentioned in my book. Like, if you were to look into the mind of a perfectionist, what you will find is that they really struggle with acceptance of how things are and how they are not. But you want to understand that, if one of the things that you struggle with is acceptance, then it's very easy for your mind to trick you into thinking that if you work hard enough, then everything will look perfect and then everyone will love you, and then it will be easy to accept yourself. Sounds familiar, right? And so, we become stuck in this vicious loop of always striving for perfectionism in the hopes that somewhere down the road, we would eventually come to a place where we totally and utterly accept ourselves. The other challenging part of having a perfectionist mind is that they have a loud inner critic, which I know many people can relate to. So, it's like when you're trying out something new or you want to try out something new, the narrative in the head goes like, let's get everything just perfect and then we will step into the unknown. And while you are figuring out and being perfect, that window of opportunity passes away. Now, the thing is, you can never be prepared enough for the unknown, because otherwise it wouldn't be called an unknown. Unknown doesn't care about perfection. It cares that you show up to the best of your ability and then you improvise on the go. It cares about you taking action, even if it's an imperfect action. So if that is the case, how do we get a perfectionist mind to take imperfect action? And this is where the concept of making imperfect art comes in. Why imperfect? So that nothing stops you from taking action. Now, since I didn't know how to draw, I started with something very simple, that is doodles. I knew that they didn't have to be perfect, so I could get away with imperfections rather easily. So my approach was that I would look up ideas on Google or Pinterest or Etsy, and then I would just copy them to the best of my ability. Now, obviously, most times my paintings didn't match the original one. And this was a blessing in disguise because it really taught me to make peace with imperfections. Because eventually I got to a point that I realized that what made my paintings imperfect is also what made them unique. If my story has resonated with you, then I would encourage you to pick up an art form that you enjoy. Perhaps explore different art forms, be it music, painting, or making pottery, or check out different classes on Skillshare and see which one of them resonates most with you. And then the $1 billion advice recommendation that I could share with you is create for the joy of creation and then share it with the world. The process of making imperfect art will free you from your perfectionist mindset, and it will put you in touch with your creative powers. So let's talk about this painting that I'm drawing at the moment. And this painting was actually made by another YouTuber, and I liked it so much that I watched that video over and over again, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. Now, the reason that I have been emphasizing on making imperfect art is because, when you look at this painting, like in and of itself, it's good enough. Like, she looks like a girl And for a beginner like me, that alone is an achievement. Now, here's the thing. When I put this painting next to the original one, like so, clearly there are tons of differences. And as you can see, mine has many imperfections in it. And that's the whole point of this exercise, being okay with imperfections and embracing them. Because as you start to become comfortable with being imperfect in your art, that shift will automatically translate into other areas of your life. Like when I was making this video, I was super nervous because I felt like my painting technique was not good enough. It wasn't at a level, where I could show it on YouTube and on and on. And then I had to remind myself that, there is no such thing as perfection. We are always learning all the time. We are always evolving. And to think of something as perfection is just believing into an illusion. I hope this video has nudged you or will nudge you to pick up an art form and just create it for the sheer joy of creation. I hope this video was helpful. As always, please only take what resonates, discard the rest. Thank you so much for watching today. I will see you next Tuesday with a new video. Until then, let's keep making imperfect art.